From America's founding historical moments, the beard choices of American men reveal deep-seated attitudes about the most basic stuff that makes a civilization tick. So grab a beard comb and let's dive face first into the bristly, dark depths of the history of the American beard. In all American history, the most famous beard arguably belongs to Abraham Lincoln. And even in his day, Lincoln's beard was a matter of intense public debate. In 1860, Lincoln was clean-chinned and still seeking election to the presidency. An 11-year-old supporter named Grace Bedell wrote to Abe, suggesting a beard might increase his chances. She explained that, quote, "All the ladies like whiskers and they would tease their husbands to vote for you." Improbably, Lincoln took her advice. He even made a point of meeting her in person to thank her for the suggestion. The press reported on it. Rival candidates mocked Lincoln for his unbecoming vanity. In 1860, long before social media, the presidential hopeful suddenly faced a credibility issue because of his beard. Right as the U.S. was about to tear itself apart, a beard became the battleground for the future of the nation's national character. It turned out that little girl was right. The beard changed Lincoln's face dramatically, making him at once both more authoritative and more relatable, and thus the Union was saved. The history of the American beard begins much earlier than Lincoln, though. According to The Atlantic, in the years immediately following the American Revolution, many newly independent citizens of the United States found service work to be beneath them. Enter a wave of newly emancipated former slaves to fill a much-needed societal role as barbers. The noble art of barbering quickly became an important avenue for a disempowered and marginalized group of people to pull themselves out of poverty. Moreover, barbers occupied a strangely powerful and high-profile position in society. Barbershops were considered places of civility, a kind of beardy town square, if you will.
Is it a barbershop? Is it a barbershop?
Yes, the shop is.
It's a barbershop.
Yes.
I mean, we can't talk street in the barbershop, then where can we talk street?
For both better and worse, the stereotype of the black barbershop gradually took hold in American culture and remained a prominent cultural touchstone for many generations. As for Lincoln, his ascent to bearded glory was no fluke. In the mid-1800s, the U.S. had also entered an active period of expansion, and beards became synonymous with vigorous national health. Capturing a prevailing attitude of the day, an 1856 article in the New York Tribune announced that, quote, "The bearded races are the conquering races." The Mexican-American War and successive waves of Native American relocation were fueled, in some part at least, by the notion that it was the national birthright of a virile nation. A beard was seen as the extension of a nation's soul, and like an empire, it was thought that a beard should be expansive, tough, and unapologetically unfettered by emasculating refinements. The giant bushy beard became a mark of moral and cultural superiority, which is why so many presidents after Lincoln sported beards. But the present-day beard isn't tainted with the smoke of battle and the musky, sweaty funk of the conqueror, is it? Well, not exactly. The idea that beards reflect virility, strength, and power is hardly unique to 19th century America, though. It's still deeply entrenched in many cultures, which has led to some interesting quirks in recent U.S. foreign policy. During much of the 20th century, American military personnel were, according to protocol, required to be clean-shaven. But after 9/11, the United States became increasingly engaged in the Middle East, where beards are very important symbols. In cultures where masculinity was mandatory for getting a seat at the table, beards became a vital cultural passport for engagement with the locals. Accordingly, Green Berets, SEALs, and Rangers were given approval by higher-ups to wear beards. An insider reporting for the New Tech Republic said, "It's difficult to overstate the cultural revolution this spurred within the service. Wearing a beard soon meant whatever one was doing must be of sufficient importance to buck the rule by which every other soldier had been governed since basic training."
What's this about refusing to shave? Who is refusing to shave?
We are.
Back in the days of Lincoln, though, the most beard-forward period in American history, facial hair wasn't just about setting America apart from other countries and cultures. It was also about setting men apart from women in a very public and political way. Women, you see, were beginning to press for the right to vote and to be treated like fully equal citizens and human beings. And that kind of revolutionary talk scared a lot of men. That launched what newspapers of the day called the beard and mustache movement, shorthand for men who wanted to starkly distinguish themselves from women and put a very public hairy face on their conservative political leanings. This was also reflected in a shift in fashion, away from the elegant, closely tailored, and courtly look of the 18th century and early 19th century gentility and towards big, boxy, manly three-piece suits. As the century continued, beards got bigger, becoming hairy ammunition in a seemingly irretractable war over gender. Doubling down on the business with big beards and colossal side whiskers was a way of showing one's masculine allegiance. A beard meant you sided with keeping the status quo. Men should be men and have the power, and women should be women and be quiet. But that hirsute war over entitlement and rights is long since dead, right? Well, not really. You'll still hear odd cultural echoes if you place your ear to the ground and listen hard enough. In 2012, a reality TV show called Duck Dynasty burst onto A&E's airwaves. The show followed the lives of the Robertson family, basically a group of men trying to find their cultural way in a world that was rapidly changing. The show became a phenomenon, with the massively bearded, self-proclaimed redneck millionaires rapidly embraced as conservative role models, thanks to their down-home Southern values, devoutly Christian beliefs, and traditional views on acceptable roles for men and women. The big, bushy Duck Dynasty beard echoes in many ways the untamable conservative maverick beard of the mid-19th century U.S.
Who has the longest beard?
Hey, my beard is longer than all y'all's beard.
So what does all this history show us? The socio-political chinscape of beards has always been complex, but over time it seems to have become more complex. In the mid-19th century, how a dude decorated his chin was usually the product of just a few social tensions. It might have been a reaction for or against female roles, for example, or in the case of the black barbershop, it may have been a way for a disadvantaged community to find a socially acceptable place in society. Whatever it was, though, it could be fairly neatly summarized. Like a well-sculpted beard, it had defined edges. Today, though, beards are conceptually fuzzy. The modern-day American beard has many faces, and the only thing they really have in common is that they are all covered with hair. Let's take a look, beginning with the benevolent beard face is epitomized by the popular charity Movember. A gentle and socially aware facial adornment, the prototypical Movember mustache, or beard, is a mere shadow of its trailblazing, bushy ancestor of yesteryear. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The Movember beard is a symbol for manning up and starting those awkward conversations that need to be had about mental and physical well-being. It is a benign and non-militant facial accessory, cheerfully acknowledging the challenges of masculinity without getting all up in anyone's business about it. It is a beard of good intentions and a cheerful, almost self-effacing masculinity. So gentle, even kids can do it. And of course, no discussion of the modern beard would be complete without the waxed, combed, and impeccably edged beard of the hipster. In the hipster beard, all the philosophical and political ambivalence of the Swanson mustache is writ large in fashion form. The hipster beard is an assertion of masculinity and at the same time a statement of genteel vanity. It's a counter-cultural barbaric roar against fashion while playing straight into fashion's hands. Ultimately, the hipster beard is oddly and intentionally ironic, a sarcastic statement about masculinity. Peter Furia, a hipster documentarian, said on NPR, "What's funny is that people who aren't hipsters generally express distaste for them, and those who appear to be hipsters hate to be identified as such. Everybody hates hipsters, especially hipsters. And the ironic part is that hipsters' opposition to pop culture has become pop culture." So what is the current state of beard for humans as a species? Beards have always been more than a handy method for preventing unwanted flies from entering one's mouth while plundering a Saxon village. Viking conquerors were arming themselves with an arsenal of beard grooming tools, including a standard-issue bone comb, which they'd taken to battle should their manly foliation become befouled with mud or gore. A well-kept beard was a symbol of self-respect and the pride of any pillaging barbarian about town. And later, the elegantly trimmed and maintained facial confections of the gentlemen of the Renaissance was considered a rite of passage from boyhood to manhood. The point is, beards are gestalt. They've always represented something more than the sum of their bristles, and they likely always will. The modern American male's chinscape is a cultural war zone. At stake is not just our modern take on masculinity, but the very stories we tell one another about what it means to be civilized. Perhaps ultimately it all boils down to evolution. According to BBC Science, researchers have found that men with beards are perceived as older and stronger. Moreover, when presented with an angry face, bearded men are perceived as being more angry than a male with a clean-shaven chin. Perhaps as a species, we're just hardwired to give a guy with a beard a +10 to intimidation. Evolutionary biologists point out that dominance over male rivals can act as a decisive shortcut to mating opportunities, citing as genetic evidence the fact that around 8% of Asian males are descendants of Genghis Khan. But age, strength, and aggression aren't the decisive factors today that they may have been when Genghis was strutting his stuff through present-day Asia. In fact, if anything, modern societies tend to value youth, sociability, and education. It begs the question, are beards on the wrong side of evolutionary history? A few generations from now, will the idea of an imposing face of bristly hair be considered laughably uncouth? Will there, in fact, ever be beards on Mars? Only time will tell what the ultimate fate of the American beard will be. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.